So this is our deck supper for March the 9th, 2019. Instant mashed potatoes. They're a little bit pink because we had tomato soup for dinner and I just put it in the same pot. And kimchi, cream corn, those weird beans with the zucchini and asparagus. And I cooked that in, well, you can probably tell, the cherry wine, so that's why that's red. And my plate of garlic. And for dessert, we're having golden berries and blueberries. I had James's share of them left, and I'm having to help him eat them because he's not getting through them. I don't know why. Unless I feed him something myself, I don't think he eats it a lot of the time. Anyway. I should get this garlic down before I talk about anything, or I won't want to get the garlic down at all. Anyway, I'm going to be talking about this DVD more, and I'm going to talk about these. They look beautiful. I'll show you. I shouldn't be reaching across like this. Is probably a bad idea. They're halal. Anyway, somebody had mentioned they were free. They were given to me at the Salvation Army Furniture Depot, and somebody was saying, oh, these are my favorite, and I was like, well, I better try them then. And I should show you the ingredient list on these. It's quite incredible. It's exciting. So I don't know if you can read that. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. Anyway, and James is going to love this because it has different languages. He loves so I don't know. So I thought, anyway, I better grab them. But I'm going to try to refrain from eating them. But they're all wrapped up. It'd be better if they were individually wrapped to the producers of this, because honestly, well, I mean, maybe people do eat them this way. Maybe they open it up and they just down the whole package. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll watch James, because I'm guessing he is going to go for these. But what I wanted to say about them, though, was a lot of the time people don't get fresh fruit to eat as a dessert because they think, oh, well, fruit's so expensive. Now, is it really expensive compared to, I don't know what the retail is on this, but it came all the way from Bulgaria, and there's a lot of packaging involved here. I can't imagine it's that cheap, and this doesn't seem like that fancy of a product, really. So I should look up the retail before I guess. But I mean, you can get some really fancy fruit, and it really doesn't cost that much. So I have a hard time believing that. And it's why I brought out the instant mashed potatoes too, because like, I'm making them because they were given to us and they're going to expire soon. But honestly, I mean, I should show the ingredients on there too, but you probably have had this product and you know what the ingredients are, so I don't know if I need to. There's a lot of ingredients in there, and it's like, okay, well, why do mashed potatoes have to have so many ingredients? And I forgot, I was going to drizzle olive oil on top, because, like, I don't cook with the oil, right? But, although, well, when possible. Like this morning, I did use a little bit of oil for pancakes, because I don't know how to make pancakes without, like, I still put it in the cast iron pan, but I put a little bit just in case. And maybe I shouldn't, but I don't really want to have to clean that up if it doesn't go well. So, anyway. So I did, but that was pumpkin pancakes. It had allspice, maca root powder, pumpkin, and something, cinnamon, lots of it. So I had my medicinal dose of cinnamon this morning easily, and I left out, usually I put stevia in that recipe for pancakes, but I left it out. It was fine. And James didn't even eat it with syrup this time, because I didn't have syrup, and I said, well, I guess you could eat it with honey, and so I had the honey there for him, but he didn't even do that. We were given some bananas, and he ate it with bananas. And you know what's funny? when I used to eat things like the instant mashed potatoes, the whatever, I didn't eat that before, but treat sort of things, I didn't realize how sweet everything is. And honestly, I didn't notice how sweet bananas were until I had one today, because I haven't had a banana in a really long time. And the last time I would have had it, it would have been in a smoothie. And so I don't know the last time I had a banana, just a banana, but I ate it and I was like, wow, that's like eating pure sugar or something. So sweet. Anyway, you don't notice these things until you change your diet, and then all of a sudden everything just tastes like candy. Like, I'm sure this cream corn here is going to taste like candy. And it used to just, when I'd make corn chowder or whatever, I'd put cans of cream corn in there. Now I wonder, why did I ever do that? But, you know, I talk to a lot of people. They'll tell me about this new recipe that they tried where they opened up a can of Campbell's soup and da-da-da-da-da. And it goes from there. And I think, yeah, you know, well, that's what I used to do. Things like that would be a recipe. Or I'd think, oh, I was really making something fancy when I'd add different vegetables or whatever to things, to instant things. Yeah, it's funny. I live in a different world now. But today, cream corn and instant mashed potatoes, because, well, the cream corn was already expired, but I haven't found that to be an issue with canned goods, honestly. So bad. I should have put down my layer on the bottom of my stomach first. That'll be better. And honestly, all I taste with that, like, I didn't make the instant mashed potatoes as directed. All I do with the instant stuff, like, I just add water until it seems about the right consistency, and it seems to work out just fine. So that's all I did. Product plus water from the kettle. And, well, I've been doing that a while, since I was in my 20s. Had I discovered that in my college years, boy, I would have felt really smart. But yeah, all I taste with those potatoes is salt. Just so much salt in there. Least favorite part of the day. Eight minced cloves of garlic, raw, hard to get down. Keep down. But yeah, with most of the meals that I used to make in the cast iron pan with oil, I found my cherry wine just cooks things up really well and tastes good. So technically it's not sauteing. I suppose it's more steaming, but it still works out. So these are a weird kind of bean that we've never had before.
What are they called?
Well, I had them before. Lupini, maybe? Something like that.
Okay, sure. Sounds like
They're
a
kind of
character in
crunchy.
Kids in the Hall. Right?
They're really high in protein.
Oh yeah.
So I ate some, what was it, yesterday, I think, in soup. And they're not great in soup because they're crunchy. But anyway, I didn't know. And then I looked at the can and I was figuring out how much I'd eaten, and it was like 44 grams of protein or something. It was too much.
It's almost your daily need, right? Just one serving.
So James watched The Favorite. How was that?
Well, it's not my favorite movie. It wasn't bad. It was kind of a different period for the Brits to be talking about. It's around the time that an ancestor of Winston Churchill was fighting in Europe against Louis XIV. And Queen Anne. Did you even know there was a Queen of England called Anne? Oh, you did? More impressive than me. I didn't know until recently.
Gotta warm up my fingers. It wasn't really any warmer earlier today. We could have had a deck dinner earlier. It wouldn't have been any warmer. Because it wasn't sunny. Like yesterday, it felt warmer here because it was sunny.
Yeah, it wasn't really sunny today. Too bad. So sad. There's always tomorrow.
Anyway, I'll put that away too.
Anyway, the thing I liked about The Favorite were the guys' wigs. They were out of sight. Cher would have been embarrassed to wear a wig like that.
So Smallfoot, I enjoyed it. I think it was a Warner Brothers thing, yeah. And basically the message was good for kids. It's a good thing to learn. It's good for everybody. Continue to learn. Don't hold yourself back. So that was great. And it was enjoyable to watch too. Ralph Breaks the Internet. I enjoyed it.
That sounds like a good idea.
It
Someone
was a
break the
Disney
internet.
And yeah, it was enjoyable. Instant Family. Now this one, I could say more about it. This movie, it makes it seem like, well, I should probably just read it as I wrote it, but it makes it seem like they're trying to act like they promote foster parenting. But if you actually pay attention to it, they keep mentioning things in it. I'll just read it. There's no real happily ever after ending. They tell us that because the girl who motivated people to become foster parents was back in rehab. So we can expect that these children will keep having problems throughout their life, even if the most altruistic parents in the world provide the care at this point. The support group keeps providing us stories throughout the movie, like it's a little check-in point, right? So, and they'll laugh about one kid's violence, like a 5-year-old who's really aggressive, and threats from children who tell their foster parents that they'll stab them in their sleep, couch fires, etc. So I really think that they're trying to, some of the things are over the top, like the positive attitudes of the caregivers in the system, like when they're joking about the couch fires and being threatened to be stabbed in their sleep. It's just like, oh, ho hum, and then the court judge playing music and celebrating the adoption and everyone pulling together in the court for a family photo. I mean, it's really not believable. And so I think the real message here was, maybe think about becoming a foster parent if you think, oh yeah, this is great, I'm gonna have an instant family. What a great idea. Because I've looked into these things recently. Over the past few years I've checked in, and there's a big push for adoption of foster children. They're like, are you sure you can't afford adoption? Because there's foster children you can adopt. And so this is where this is coming from. And you know, it's anyway. So
you can have a family, but it's an immediate dysfunctional family, and it looks as though at least there are a number of cases. So
yeah,
get ready.
So anyway, what I think about foster, the foster care system now is very different from when I thought about it when I was a teenager. You know, I was friends with foster children that had a lot of serious problems, and I felt so sorry for them. Like the parents that they had never seemed really great. Like the best kind of situations that I ran across were where the foster parents, they would have a locked door to their main living space, and they would all eat dinner together in the parents' living space, but then the kids lived separately and they could not get into the house, the rest of the house. It was a locked system where the kids just stayed. They were in the same house, but they couldn't get to where the parents were unless it was a specific time where they had shared meals. That was it. And those systems actually seemed to work okay. I mean, the places where the kids were staying, they'd often get you could see the rooms would get vandalized and stuff like that, right? But at least the parents weren't getting like their dog's tail chopped off or something, or the eyes poked out while the kids were in their living space, or their whole house vandalized. So if there's a lot of great people who want to do good by becoming foster parents, and if you can handle it, that's awesome, but are you treating the symptom of the problem, really? I mean, we're going to talk about this opioid problem. So, and both James and I have known people that have been addicted to opioids, and they ended up having children. And their children end up getting taken, and like the one woman that I knew, her mother got custody of her daughter. It happened pretty quickly. But she would have been in the foster system otherwise. So honestly, you know, as much as that woman was not fit to care for children, neither was her daughter. And the cycle continues. And it's sad. But anyway, warning, this drug may kill you is a 1-hour documentary about the opioid addiction problem of U.S. citizens. Prescription opioids include OxyContin, Vicodin, Percocet, Opana, Demerol, Dilaudid, Norco, and fentanyl. And I didn't know that. I hadn't realized that fentanyl was an opioid until I watched this. And honestly, I didn't know about a lot of the other ones either. I had heard of those drugs, but I didn't know that they were opioids. And I've heard people talk about using them recreationally, these prescription things, and I've never understood it. Like James has been on, and you know, my ex, he used to be on Percocet. He had chronic pain issues, and you know, occasionally, like I'd be in pain, and he wanted, you know, I think he actually thought it was kind of funny, but a few times he'd say something like, "Do you want an aspirin?" And so I'd be like, oh, "Okay." So he'd get me an aspirin. It was not aspirin, and it took me a couple times actually to figure out, wait a minute, why are these aspirins working so well? And then, I said, well, I don't want it if it's a Percocet, because I figured it out. But anyway.
Yeah, I used to be on it, but on hydromorphone, but that was almost 7 years ago, 6.5 years ago. And I don't know how people can get hooked on anything like that. It was very unpleasant.
Oh, I mean, for me, it took away my pain, for sure. Like, I had a problem where my wrist was sore, and I had shooting pain up my arm, and it was impossible to sleep. And anyway, so yeah, it helped. But, I mean, I guess I didn't take it very much, so I can't really say, how hard it is to get off. But I do know that when he would have troubles with, sometimes his doctor would go away on holidays or something, and not tell him, so he didn't know, and then he'd run out of pills, and he'd be having to try to convince some other doctor to give him the prescription, because it's triplicate prescription, and then he'd have to detox, and he did not look like he was enjoying it. Like, there were a lot of physical side effects to detox that I shouldn't talk about over dinner, but yeah, some of the things, like, he'd look pretty much green and clammy, and he'd shake a lot. And he'd have to go through this every time the doctor would go on holidays or whatever, because, then nobody else wants to give, they don't want to be responsible, right? Anyway, so back to the DB. Girl tells us a story about getting the call about her sister's death while she was in the Taco Bell drive-thru. Both young women were heroin addicts. She didn't say that she was driving on heroin, but I expect she was. So many people drive while stoned on such things. Like the best friend that I had in high school that became a heroin addict. She was constantly driving while stoned, and she was driving without insurance while stoned. Anyway, the documentary isn't very well made. Too much showing people's home movies and such. Editing should have been more of a priority. A woman would repeatedly injure herself. Like, she was a mother and looked like a responsible middle upper class kind of woman, right? And so she would repeatedly injure herself on purpose so that she could get more prescription opioids because she was addicted. And rehab never stuck for her, and she ended up overdosing. With daily opioid use, physical dependence can occur in about a week. Narcan is an emergency antidote for opioid overuse. A little girl tells us about how she could help treat her mom with Narcan if required. Adolescents prescribed opioids are 33% more likely to misuse them as adults. They are showing us wealthy middle-class suburbia folks with addictions, which I think will reach more people who might be less likely to accept opioid prescriptions now. 91 people die from an opioid overdose each day. And it's good that the one young woman who was shown in this video lived in a state-sponsored rehab, kind of, whatever. And so she was able to go through the program, but it ended up that she left the program in 6 days. Even though it's sponsored, I guess, I mean, they can't force them to stay. They're going in voluntarily. She went back out and went back to heroin. And apparently, like, James was learning recently at university that Lethbridge is like fentanyl central.
Well, that's how I understood it. It might have been stated. It was someone was giving a speech, and sometimes people can get things wrong. The person seemed to be someone who's in a position to know, or I could have misunderstood. So one has to be careful with that. But I believe that's what the person said.
Yeah, I don't know.
Last
but
week
we had somebody that there was an open first aid kit on my deck one morning, and I closed it up because I didn't want it to get full of snow, and I thought, well, they might come back for it, so I hung it where they could see it if they were walking by there, and it went. So either they got it or somebody else needed it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Just don't want to know.
Mm-hmm. But honestly, I don't know what drugs people are on in Lethbridge, but it seems like there's a lot of drugs here. And if it's fentanyl that's the problem, I don't know. I didn't used to think that, like, when people would talk about opioid problems, like addictions and stuff, and people using it recreationally, I was like, come on, who would use that recreationally? It's like, I don't know. I just didn't understand it, but I guess James and I were not the kind of people that were into such things, so...
It's boring at best.
Yeah.
And the hydromorphine was unpleasant. It just made you dizzy and nauseated. So if people want that thrill, that's their business, I suppose. But I can keep it to themselves. The doctor didn't help out with my pain very much, anyway. So. Well, there we go.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm going to take this in. I'm kind of getting a little cold, and it's already a little cold from yesterday. Yeah.